Welcome to our um, home-based meetup, first time ever for Go Open and See. This is Pam Batchelor from North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, and I'm so glad to be with you this morning and spend some time looking at Go Open and See and how our platform for open educational resources has grown in the last few months. So we're going to spend the first couple of minutes just going over logistics and making sure connected and understands all of the great features of webinar. So first things first, I would love for you to get a slide deck, and you can do that in a couple of ways. You can type in the bit.ly that's on the screen that I'm sharing. It's also in your chat bar. You should see a welcome message with a link to today. You can also find it in the handouts section of GoToWebinar. There is a PDF copy of the slide deck that you can download and have. So everyone just a minute to get connected and pull up the slide deck, whether you want to type in the bit.ly or if you want to download from the handouts section. We did have about 45 people registered for this session this morning, so we're just going to give everyone a minute. I understand it's Friday morning and we might have had other meetings or things come up. Asking just a couple about GoToWebinar. When you first join, it will ask you for an audio method. You can either use computer audio or and if you use the phone, you have to call in using the number that. So if you are having any audio right now, you can, on the second slide of this slide deck, you will see some troubleshooting tips from GoToWebinar. If anybody would like to be unmuted and talk throughout the webinar, please raise your hand in the attendee panel and I will unmute you, and then you can mute and unmute as needed throughout the webinar. I do want this to be a very interactive time, so if you are able to participate with us, if you could raise your hand in the attendee panel, I will. So I do see, as we're waiting for folks to join, I see John. I'm unmuting you now, so you can mute and unmute. Cami is also with us, so I'm going to unmute her. If anybody else would like to have their own audio control, with GoToWebinar, it does make it by default that everyone is muted, but I can unmute, and then during the meeting you can mute and unmute yourself to participate with questions. If you are multitasking today, which I certainly understand, there is a question GoToWebinar. Type in questions throughout the meeting in the questions panel, and we will pause and periodically check for questions so that way we can as we go through today's meeting. All right, I'm going to go ahead and go on to that second slide where we're looking at housekeeping for GoToWebinar. Again, the questions pane, please make sure you can type in your questions throughout the webinar and we will pause and check on those. You'll also see the handout section. Today's webinar, I have a PDF copy of the slide deck. And then one of the questions that was submitted was about using Go Open and See and SchoolNet together. So I have in the handout section loaded the quick reference card that explains the functionality of Go Open and See within SchoolNet. So there is an integration that we'll talk about a little later, but I did want to point out that that handout is the you haven't. All right, so I'm going to do another of the attendee panel. Looks like we have about 15 on with us today so far, and we had about 45 registered. If you would like to be unmuted, please raise your hand in the attendee panel, and I will make sure you're muted so that way during the meeting you can mute and unmute yourselves. All right, and I'm going to start with a couple of questions just to make sure we're all good and connected. So first, I'd like to know if you can hear. So if you can hear me, if you could answer the quick poll, yes or no. If you can hear me. Thing we've learned about GoToWebinar is that if you have the screen maximized, the screen that I'm sharing, it won't let you click on the polls. So you may have to kind of minimize your screen if you're having trouble answering the poll questions. Looks like everyone can hear, and let's make sure everyone can see my screen. And give about 5 more seconds for this to vote. All right, great. Looks like everyone can see. And then lastly, just for my knowledge, this is our very first time having a home-based meetup session for Go Open NC. So it would be helpful to me just to know your experience level, and there's several there. So if you want to take a few seconds to vote on what your experience level is of Go Open NC, just so that way I know. All right, about 5 more seconds for this. And Rob, I do see I'm going to unmute you.
Hey, Pam, just want to say good morning.
Good morning. Yes, and if anyone else would like to be unmuted as we go through the meeting again, then the attendee panel, and I'll be happy to unmute you. Okay, so I'm going to close this poll and we'll share the results here. So we have a good mix of folks, some who, everyone has heard about Go Open NC, so that's good to know. Some that have, been able to explore it a little bit, but they're still getting comfortable. Some that are pretty comfortable, and a few that have led PD on it. So wonderful. That's awesome to have a good background knowledge of a mix of things. So just to let you know, this meeting really is about you and your questions and goals around Go Open NC. Just a little bit as a refresher, our big goals for Go Open NC is, of course, providing standards aligned resources to have that conversation about quality and consistency in our resources. Of course, collaboration and partnerships with public school units, and establishing groups and hubs that they can share and curate materials for their schools or districts. Of course, being able to have this place where we can personalize materials through remixing is very exciting. Professional learning, we do have the North Carolina professional teaching standards, as well as the digital learning competencies for administrators and teachers on the site. So you can share professional learning documents and best practices and resources that you would like to open the license and share with the rest of the state. And then, of course, just building this larger OER community of practice where we're really thinking about when we create instructional resources, how we can license them to allow others to use them freely without any of that kind of copyright gray area many of us live in a daily world. OER is kind of that crystal clear standard that we hope that as the platform continues to grow, more will start to engage in thinking about their work a little differently when they're. So I would like to start with some introductions. So if you would like to, I will go through the list of the folks who have asked to be unmuted and ask them to introduce themselves. And then if for those of you who would like to type in an introduction, if you could go into the question panel and enter in your name, your district or charter school, and your experience with Go Open NC, and any questions you have today, any burning questions. So uh, we'll start with the folks that have been asked to be unmuted. So I'm just going to go down the list here and call. So first one is Cami. So Cami, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Pam. Good morning. This is Cami and Aaron. I work with Pam on the home-based team under digital teaching and learning at DPI, and I manage the NESIS teacher evaluation system and learning.com. Good to be with you guys today.
Thank you, Cami. We're excited to have you with us as well. So John's next on the unmute.
Good morning, John Mars. I am part of the home-based training team here at DPI.
Thank you for joining us today, John. Dr. Dietrich.
Good morning. I am the new home-based manager, and I am also glad to be here and see what's going on.
Thank you. We're excited to have Dr. Dietrich joining us from Lee County Schools. And you may have heard his introduction earlier in one of the other sessions we had this week, but we're still very glad to have him on our team and to have our team be complete. All right, I'm going to check and read out our friends that have typed in an introduction. So first, we're going to start with Kelly Williamson from Craven County Schools, and she notes that she loves Go Open and See. I love it. So Jason has asked to be unmuted, so I'm going to unmute Jason so he can introduce himself.
Hey, it's Jason Weinberger here from Cleveland County Schools, and I poked around in Go Open NC, but I definitely want to learn more, so I'm here.
Awesome. Yay, we're glad to have you, Jason. All right, going back to our folks that have typed in introductions. And so Anita Martin is with us from Wayne County. She's a digital teaching and learning coach. And thank you, Anita, for joining us. You've been with me today. This will be the third home-based meetup that you've been to with me. So I appreciate you taking the time to join us for these virtual meetings. All right, we have Tamara Easter from Charlotte Mac. She's very new to Go Open and See and excited to have a platform for collaboration and sharing that spans our state. We have Angela Cogdill from Granville County Public Schools with us. Thank you, Angela. Glad to have you. And we have Serena Halstead from Wake County Public Schools. So thank you for those of you who have added your introductions. We appreciate the community and us having a space together to learn for the next time. I do want to start just with your questions. So I've linked here in slide 4, a hot topics document. If you click on it, and if we're just going to give everyone a minute or so to type in any topics or questions that they wanted to discuss. And then we're going to kind of go from there with the presentation. So I have a lot of slides in the slide deck. I'm not sure I'm going to go over all of them, but I just wanted to give you some resources for those of you who are new to Go Open and See, but we definitely want to spend time on the topics that you want to talk about. So if everyone would take a minute to get to this document, and I'm going to actually post a link to it in the chat, a direct link. There we go. And then I'm going to be quiet for a minute and give everyone time to type. I see folks are starting to type in the document, so just don't be shy. Feel free to put your topic in, even if it's just, hey, I want a basic overview of what is Go Open MC. You're not gonna hurt my feelings. I want this to be as useful as possible during our time together this morning. So all right, so we're going to go ahead. Um, And while people are typing into this document, I do have like 2 slides of updates just to kind of give you some quick updates on where the platform is, and then we'll come back to hot topics. So keep typing in that hot topics document and we'll come back to it in just a minute. But I did kind of want to share just a couple of statistics. Go Open and See launched on December 16th. So just, a few months ago. And we've grown to 18,530 active users as of April 21st, which is 225% growth since January. We also now have 2,850 open authored resources that have been created on the platform, which is over 100% growth since January. And I'm really excited about that number because that means that educators are not just looking at Go Open and See as a place to consume resources, but also to share resources and kind of really build that community because it is hard to have items for every area and every course. And of course, that's one of our but it's going to take us as a community being willing to share resources because there's a lot of very specific CTE courses and even pre-K materials and things that are just that just haven't been shared before on a statewide platform. So we're excited to see that growth. Of course, with the shift to remote learning, that has provided some more opportunities for using Go Open and See. And we do have a remote learning hub on Go Open and See with groups for subject areas and grade level educators to connect and share about remote learning. We also have had a series of remote learning webinars, and there's links to the remote learning hub as well as the remote learning webinars. So you can see a little bit of data about the webinars that we've had and the resources. So really it was a 2-part webinar where the first part was talking about Creative Commons licensing, what is OER, and with remote learning, what are some of our copyright concerns, and a little bit about the platform and the backstory of it. And then the second webinar really dove into Go Open and See and how to use that to connect and collaborate. And so you can see we had a great response. We had over 3,000 attendees for 4 webinars. So it was a lot of fun, a lot of people, and there's a lot of resources that I've linked here on this document. You can see the recordings for all of the webinars as well as our slide decks. So feel free to take any of these resources back to your schools and districts as you talk about remote learning. You know, we are going to, it looks like based on the legislation that's current right now between the Senate and the House bills, both of them have districts will have to create a digital learning plan for remote learning. And so, you know, thinking about content access and making sure there's copyright follows and those kinds of things. Great considerations to think about as we go through uh, legislation and see what's actually passed later on today. All right, the other thing I wanted to share was just some things that are coming soon. So we do have new standards coming up for next year. Those will be updated in Go Open and See. So we have, of course, CTE is making a lot of changes with their program areas. And we will, as soon as the file is ready, we will be updating those standards on Go Open and See, as well as SchoolNet and Canvas. We also have the digital learning standards for students, and so those will be coming to Go Open and See, as well as SchoolNet and Canvas. For Go Open and See specifically, we're going to have 2 new hubs developed, and these hubs are going to be on the digital learning standards for students and culturally responsive teaching. We've had over 1,000 teachers apply to be a part of these 2 new hub academies, so we're really excited about that. The actual registration for the hub academies is open until Monday, and I've linked it here on this slide so you can actually see the Academy application, and you're welcome to share it out if you feel like there's anyone particularly in your districts or staff or you would like to take part in the Hub Academies. We would love to have you. We cannot take everybody that's applied, just an FYI, we can only take about 400 out of the 1,000 that have applied. So just an FYI, all those information is here on the application, but we do welcome folks to continue to apply through Monday. And then another thing that we're also going to be working on is some 30-minute mini webinars. So after the remote learning webinars, we asked for feedback, and a lot of folks said that they wanted some on-demand resources that they could take back and kind of watch on their own time to learn more about Go Open and See. And they also said that the hour-long webinars was just a little bit too much time. They would like something shorter. So we're going to work on some 30-minute mini webinars, and we'll let you know as soon as those are available, but that was some good feedback. So we're going to go back to that document for hot topics and see how what we have so far, and we'll just kind of get started. So I see Angela started with wanting to know a little bit more about the BT support. So the BT support hub is still there in Go Open and See, and it's still available. It's a public hub. So I think, you know, it would be wonderful to continue to work on it and expand it. So that could definitely be something that we could talk about. Do you have any specific ideas, Angela? Okay. Well, we're waiting. We'll go ahead and talk to Kelly. So Kelly was mentioning that she found some items from math that were showing algebra and geometry. So let's talk a little bit about items in Go Open and See. So where did we get Go Open and See items? Not everything in Go Open and See is native to North Carolina. In fact, most of the things on Go Open and See are not created exclusively for North Carolina. We hope that going forward, we will continue to get more North Carolina specific items and resources. But what that means is that you might see references to Common Core standards, but know that every item that's on Go Open and See has been aligned to North Carolina standards. So just because you might click on, I know, for example, some of our math online textbooks from Engage New York are aligned to Common Core standards, but they're also aligned to North Carolina Standard Course of Study standards. So you might click on the link to the textbook and it might say something about, algebra or geometry specific, but know that that resource on Go Open at Sea has been aligned to North Carolina specific standards. It's just that that resource might be designed to be used across the country, and a lot of the states still have the Common Core standards. So you might see references to Common Core, but know that that resource has been aligned to North Carolina specific standards. So hopefully that makes sense. Let me know. All right, good. Kelly said that makes perfect sense. All right. So released bank. So our released bank items don't go into Go Open and See. They go into SchoolNet. And so they have been updated except for ELA in SchoolNet. So if you're looking for released items, you can go and find them in SchoolNet. And that is just because Go Open and See is for more of our instructional materials, right? So an individual test question is not really going to be something that could be used for instruction. So we're choosing to keep those into SchoolNet. Now, I did say that the ELA test items released items are not in SchoolNet, and that is because of the copyright agreement with the authors of those reading passages. They specifically said that the only place they could be posted online is NC Test. So for the ELA released items, the only electronic transmission of them could be to NC Test. So you still have to go to the NC Test site for ELA items. So Angela, I see the idea about the BT for refs could possibly add a resource for hubs. Absolutely. In fact, I think Jill was on this call. Jill, I'm calling you out. And I know she shared something that she got something from the refs earlier, or maybe it was another team member. But it'd be something that, as we're thinking about, normally in June, we have a lot of like back to school or BT support events. And maybe it could be something that we could do with Go Open and See, since, it's looking like face-to-face may not be an option. So Jill, I just didn't know if you had any ideas about that. So I'll unmute you so you can talk.
Hey everybody. So I've put it out for if any of you've been a part of NC Learns Together. I know that Adam Wiseman and Stacey Lovedahl are in the throes of starting to plan 3.0, which will be at the end of May. I've recommended to them to have resources that may be created, put in Go Open NC. And then also we're looking at some professional learning either in June or July, and putting more resources within Go Open. So we're just on the beginning stages of potentially planning those events.
Thank you, Jill. Appreciate you
You're
sharing.
welcome.
But I think, Go Open and See does provide a great platform that we can utilize in this time of, social distancing, and we need to be more virtual. Go Open and See has those community support as well as the organization methods that could help organize virtual things. All right, so the next thing on the hot topics is just kind of like an overview of Go Open and how to share information with teachers. So we can move on to that. So I did want to point out in the slide deck one more thing. We have a survey for webinars, what you would like to see. And so we're going to be sending this out next week to anyone who has attended a webinar this year for Go Open and See. It's also includes Canvas and SchoolNet. So I would love your feedback on what you would like to see for webinars. We've had some on-demand webinars in addition to the remote learning webinars that were very popular. So I'd love to know your feedback. On these slides, I do have kind of an intro to what is Go Open and See. You are welcome to take these slides and use them with your staff. So these next slides here, slides 8 going down through 30 are all just kind of like a Go Open and See basic, what is it? So what I would like to do is go over about 2 slides, and then I just want to show you the platform. So first of all, how do teachers get to Go Open and See? Well, they can type in the URL, or they can click on the icon in their NC EdCloud tray. So all North Carolina educators have access to this. So, it's right there in your NC EdCloud tray. It's free. There's no cost. So who doesn't like that, right? Free resources. When we talk about Go Open and See, you might have heard I've already talked about hubs and groups. I just kind of want to go over the structure of it. So if you think of the Library of Congress, right, our national library, our National Library of Open Educational Resources is called OER Commons. And if you've never been to oercommons.org, I encourage you to go. Check that out. We decided that for North Carolina, we wanted a specific library that was aligned to North Carolina standards. So when you go to OER Commons, you'll see that they have Common Core standards on there, which, a lot of states use, but we wanted a very specific library that had the North Carolina Standard Course of Study materials and standards on them. So we've got this North Carolina version called Go Open and See. It's called Go Open because North Carolina is one of 20 Go Open states as recognized by the U.S. Department of Education as part of the Go Open movement. So we unfortunately got a lot of confusion for our hub academies when I sent the emails out 2 weeks ago, thinking we were talking about Reopen and See. So that was just a fun, unfortunate event of the timing that we live in, but know that Go Open and See is part of a national commitment to open education resources versus things that we have to continually pay for, such as, as wonderful as all of these companies that are coming out right now for COVID-19 are offering you free trials and free, resources. As you've probably heard, they're free like a puppy. They're free for now, free for you to use right now, but next school year when we go back, they probably most likely will not be, whereas openly licensed open education resources will continue to be free because the license, once the license is applied, is irrevocable, right? So those resources will continue to be available for you for use. So within our Go Open and See, we have kind of the wing of the library is the hubs, right? So that's where you're going to go if you're very interested in a specific topic. Like we have a STEM hub. So if you're looking for resources and groups of people to collaborate with revolving around STEM, then you would go to the STEM hub. Right. And then we also have these tables where you can collaborate called groups, right? So anyone, any user on Go Open and See can create a group. So you can make a group for your specific district. You can make a group for your specific school. You can make a group for 4th grade social studies, or, however you want to organize and collaborate with other folks, you can make your own groups. Groups can be public or private. So if you want a group that's specifically private to your school or district, you can create one, no problem there. And then finally, of course, we have collections, which is kind of like, an organization of materials by a topic or grade level. So we have lots of collections that we've already kind of made up. And I'll share with you a few collections when we get on site, but I just kind of wanted to explain those terms, hubs, groups, and collections, because that kind of can be confusing when you're first getting started with Go Open and See. So when you actually go to the site, I'm just going to go to the home page now. You'll see the homepage has, your basic search right off the top of the board, right? And I'm going to put the link to it in your chat as well. So if you want to go onto the site with me, you certainly can. And you log in via your NC Ed Cloud, right? So when you're logged in, you'll see your little profile image up here. So if you're not logged in, if you haven't used the NC Ed Cloud, it'll ask you to sign in with those details. So one thing that I want to point out is this Go Open NC Toolkit. So right here, this link up here in the upper left corner, it actually goes to a Google site full of information that you can use to share Go Open NC with your staff. So this toolkit is really more for what is OER, want to learn more, how you can join the community. So there's lots of resources up here, and everything is Creative Commons licensed. So you can take any of these videos, documents, presentations that you see, and you can reuse them and share. Okay, because we understand that you wear many hats, and we want to make sure it's easy for you to share those resources. So that is the Go Open NC Toolkit that's right up here. It's linked in purple on the left corner. We have our search bar here, which is pretty, we can go in here and look for, photo. So this, right? And we have our search. We can go in here and also broaden our search to refine it by standards, right? So maybe I want to go down and I want to look for my essential standards for science and grades 9 through 12, right? And so we go in, right? And so we can go in and drill down to a specific standard. And I'm just going to click on one. And so this brings up our resource page, right? So from this, I can view some information about this particular lesson. I can view it's got a star rating, kind of like Amazon. So this one only has 2 stars. So womp womp. But that's important because, it might be a 2-star resource for somebody, but it might be for me. I might say, oh no, this is a 4-star. So one thing to look at is we have our description of what it is, and we have our standards, right? So what specific standards it's been aligned to. And then we have someone has gone in here and left us a nice comment about what the standard is. Says it's partially aligned because it only covers photosynthesis, has clear objectives. And so down here at the bottom, it kind of talks about what could be made better about this resource, which I love. And you'll notice that there's also an evaluation section. So we have on every resource the North Carolina Quality Review Rubric that was developed in partnership with NC State with the Friday Institute. And so we can go in here and we can actually evaluate this resource based on its alignment to standards, focus, engagement, evaluation, accuracy, adequacy, appropriateness for target audience. And then if you mouse over, it kind of tells you what the criteria is for each part of this rubric. So there's lots of ways that you can provide very valuable feedback on every resource in Go Open NC. So besides just the quick Amazon star rating, you can type in a comment, and then you can also evaluate. So for sharing this particular lesson, I could share it to Google Classroom. We do have an integration with Canvas as well. So for learning management systems, you can, what you would do is instead of going to Go Open NC, you would actually go into your learning management system and you would add via external tool, and Go Open NC is one of the available external tools, and then you can bring in resources that way. But you can also flag a resource. That's another way for quality control kind of purposes that we get a lot of questions about. So I can go in and report this resource, and I can say report a resource, and then it asks me, hey, does this have a broken link? Is it inaccurate description, a licensing issue? And that actually comes to me. I get a little service and support ticket, and I go in and look at these resources. You can click and save, so we can create our own folders within Go Open and See. So when I click on the save button, since I have a lot of folders, I can click on one of my personal folders to save it to. All right, so this is now in my cool things to share, but I can also save it to groups. So this is great because, once you're a member of a group that I'll get to in a minute, you can go in here and save things to groups. So if I was a member of a high school biology group, I could, sit in here and save this lesson to it. To actually view the resource, you click on view resource and it pops open. Right, so the nice thing about this particular resource is it's a Google Doc, right? So, if I go back and I saw that quality comment that someone made that said I need to, support beginning learners, I could go right in here under File and make a copy and add those supports that are needed for my particular students, right? So maybe I have some EL students in my classroom. I could sit here and make a copy of this lesson and adjust it for the supports that they would need. You still have the little Go Open and See bar at the top, so I can still rate this, I can still comment on it, I can still evaluate it with a rubric. I can still, report it if I need to. So all that functionality is still kind of there. So before I go into groups, are there any questions just about just the overall functionality of the platform with searching and looking at resources? And those of you that are unmuted, feel free to ask any questions if you have any. All right, I'm going to jump into groups because I feel like that's where the power of the collaboration really comes into. So if you see this blue banner across the top of the page, you'll see our hubs, which are those collections of resources and groups that I've talked about, as well as our groups. So I'm just going to click on the word groups. And I'm just going to go see all groups. And you'll see all of the groups that are been created so far in Go Open and See. We have, I think, over 300. So there's quite a few. So, if I was looking for, a first grade educators group, I can see there's 85 people in this group, that they have 9 resources so far. So these are things that they have shared in this first grade group. You'll see there's resources, discussions, and I can also look and see who is a member of this group. So to join this group, I just click on the join the group button. And now instead of join, I have contribute, right? So where I could actually submit a resource that I have, right? So let's say I have an awesome first grade, digraph lesson, right? I could actually go in and now go to Open Author and upload that resource, and it would be available just to this group, right? So great way to easily share. I could also go in and create new group folders. So maybe if I wanted to create a folder for each subject area in first grade, and then you could actually create subfolders, if you wanted to do for each unit. So if I wanted to go in and let's see, I wanted to make a group. Let's say I look at all of these and I don't see a group that I want. And you can search. You can go in and click on create a group. Any user can do this, right? So maybe I'm going to make a Cleveland County Schools Rocks group. Okay. Um, what type of is this group for? You know, is it for general instructors, students, right? I usually just leave it general, but you can be specific if you want to. Let's see. Jason says correct. So we go through and we create this group. Maybe, you know, this is a group for professional development, right? Because we want it for our teachers, right? And then grade levels, we can just go in and, you know, select. There we go. All right, and so we're going to describe this is an awesome group for Cleveland County Schools educators. All right, and so we go through, and this is where we can make it public or private, right? So we can make it anyone can join the group, or we can make it so only approved folks can join the group. So I'm going to say anyone can join because that's what I usually recommend, unless you're very, you know, adamant about wanting a private group. It would just provide more work for you because you would have to go in and approve folks before they could see the resources and participate in the discussion. So just for you. Once I have created this group, there's nothing here, right? But I still have all these information. I can create a discussion. It's got, you know, basic rich text editor. I can add videos in here. And then you can set that only group members could see it if you want to make it a private discussion. But what you can also do is go to this group and you have this little manage group. And here is where, as the owner of this group, I can sit here and edit any of that information I put. I could also input a cool little cover image for the group administrators. I can also type in anyone's email address, right, to invite them to be another group administrator. I can also look and see members, right? And I see Jason has already joined this, right? So I can now look and see Jason's profile. This is kind of cool. We can go in and look and see at his group, his hubs that he is a member of, and any items that he has uploaded to go open and see. So pretty cool little profile information. If you click on anyone's name, you can kind of see their information. Jason says there's nothing special there yet. I love that yet. Yes, because so how could you use this, right? Let's talk about groups for a minute. How do you see yourself, you know, being able to use these? You know, do you ever have any events where maybe your teachers come together around curriculum, around these remote learning plans that we're going to have to be working on? You know, I see tremendous value in groups and, you know, getting together groups of educators virtually, being able to have them share information. Even looking at like digital learning competency credit, like how could we, you know, use groups to help teachers align and share resources? So I'm curious. Talk to me either in the questions group or you can feel free to unmute. How do you think you could use a group? All right. Well, all right, we got a couple coming in. All right, so Angela was saying that mentors could be a group to utilize resources of BTs as part of their collaboration. Absolutely. Jason says that he knows some very active teacher teams who will jump on this as a way to curate resources and share the work of pulling them in. I'll plan to present on a session on this at our virtual symposium in August. Absolutely, Jason. Yay. And just be in touch. Of course, I have some slide decks already built I'm happy to share. So um, feel free to take and modify. Let's see, content PLC groups can use groups as a place to house resources and collaborate. Absolutely. So we have, I'll just, go through real quickly. Adding resources is very simple. There's this green add OER button at the top of the page. So if I already know of like this great online textbook that is openly licensed, I can go through here and simply add the link and mention what standards it's aligned to, because we do require everything in GoOpenNC to be aligned to North Carolina standards. So I would need to submit the link to the resource that I know about and what standards it's aligned to, and it's submitted. Or if I already have something that, that I've created, I can go in through Open Author and add a resource. And it takes me through this kind of, simple, I can add a title image, so sample lesson on Africa gold salt trade. There we go. So we have our main content box, but wait a minute, if I already have this, I can import from Google Docs or from Microsoft OneDrive as a Word document. So if you already have your amazing lesson plans in Google Docs, you can just click here, and it asks you, of course, to authorize, but then it asks you to select a file. So I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to select this document here. And you'll see that it took all of the content from my Google Doc and put it very nicely into the Open Author platform. So that way I don't have to kind of reinvent the wheel. If I want to see what this is going to look like, I can click on the little preview button. And this is what people will see on the platform. So go back and edit. There we go. The nice thing is that GoOpenNC does have an accessibility checker, right? So notice I ran through this and I have 1 of 5 issues, right? So I have an image here, but I don't have any alternate text. So I can go ahead and put in here cover image. All right. And then paragraphs must not be used for headers, right? So it can tell me, I suggest, and then it actually goes through and fixes it for me. Link text, right? So I said, click here, and really I should have put, something more descriptive so that way a screen reader would have told me what to do. I'm just going to ignore that for right now. And then paragraphs again, I could do a quick fix. And then quick fix for that. And then now I only have 1 issue. So we do have built-in supports here for accessibility to make sure that, when we're thinking about remote learning resources or any kind of online resources, that it's useful for all learners and, they're able to view the content. But you can also put in videos, math equations. We also have the tables and image support as well. You can also attach resources. So maybe there's a website that I want to, so I want folks to go to, and this is going to be current events. And you can add as many resources as you need to go along with your instructional material. You can also add additional sections. So you could use this to develop like an instructional unit. You would just add new sections for each part of your lesson. If that makes sense. So when I go to publish this, then it's going to ask me for what a description of this resource is. So sample lesson. It's going to ask me for my license. So it has that built-in Creative Commons licensing in it, right? So anything that's a DPI is, you know, in the public domain because we're a government. But you could also choose, you know, like non-commercial, so that way folks can't make money off of your resource. You have to choose your subject area, right? So world history, grade level, material type, what is this lesson? Language, what language is it in? And then here we get to our standards, right? So I'm gonna go in and select our, the one thing is just make sure you're looking for essential standards. Extended standards are for our, you know, for our EC courses and things. So I'm gonna go ahead, go down to world history, and we'll just, right. And the rest of these are optional if you want to put in like how much time this is required, any keywords, and then you just have to agree that you agree to the terms and conditions, the licensing terms, and the terms of Go Open at Sea. You publish, and then your resource is available for others. So it might take you 15 minutes or so the first time you go through this, you know, maybe 15, 20 minutes, but then it gets faster and faster the more you use Go Open and See to add resources. All right, any questions? All right, so I did want to point out that specifically for districts, we are working with ISKME on what types of leads and reports we can make available to folks, because we know we've had a couple of questions about how can I tell how many users I have from, you know, my district. And so right now I have a list of all users and I can filter through based on your email address. So what your specific email strand is for your district, and I'm certainly happy to pull you a list of users, but we're also hoping to identify some leads for each district that could then also see this information themselves. So we are working on more reporting and things that are available for you at district level, so that way you can go in and monitor your own usage. Let's see here. We did also want to point out that, you know, all of these features, you know, it's kind of on all of us to make sure that there's quality assurance and continuous improvement, right? So by being an active member of Go Open NC, you can help us by pointing out things that, may stop working, or, because links on the internet break. So, that ability to flag resources and also leave comments and evaluations, very important work. And it's also a good practice too for educators to look at other resources and evaluate them for quality, evaluate them for the alignment to standards, right? Kind of give them a refresher on that lens that we hope that they're taking the time for all of their instructional materials that they use within their classroom. This is, supplemental resources. This doesn't have a full curriculum on it, but we do hope to continue to grow. One thing I did want to point out is our ISKME, which is our partner and or a vendor for Go Open NC. They're also working on providing support for common cartridge files. So hopefully in the future, we can also share courseware on Go Open NC, as well as just instructional materials. So very exciting there. So we do have a lot of resources on these slides. And we also have some badges available. So if you have some teachers that are interested in or motivated by badging, we do have 3 challenges. We have a collaborate, curate, and create challenge, and you can actually request a digital badge. So that's exciting. So please feel free to share those resources as maybe a takeaway activity from if you share any PD about Go Open NC, maybe this could be their follow-up activity. They could go and earn themselves a badge for Go Open NC. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. We do have a Go Open NC specific email address. You can also feel free to reach out to me. Either way, I will be more than happy to look at any questions or provide any resources that I can. We do have a feedback survey that we'd like for you to create, but I do have one more thing to share. I did want to go over. Jason says he's going to go pick up a badge before I share this. Awesome. I do have one more thing I wanted to go over, which is that other handout that I have shared. And if you go to the handout section and go to webinar, I did pull up here we go, SchoolNet integration guide. So this kind of walks you through how you can use Go Open NC within SchoolNet. So if a teacher goes into SchoolNet and searches for the instructional materials, they can find Go Open NC results. It feeds in through an API connection that we have in between Go Open NC and SchoolNet. And they can go in and view resources that are on Go Open NC. And since we have single sign-on, when they click on them, it opens up in Go Open NC, just like they were looking at it through Go Open NC. But they still have those additional options to save resources, schedule them within SchoolNet, as well as build express tests within a resource from SchoolNet. So if I go into SchoolNet, search resource, find a lesson plan that I like on Go Open NC, I can then use the standards that that lesson plan is aligned to build an express in SchoolNet. So that's a pretty cool feature. Please let me know if you have any questions. You're welcome to share these documents as well with your staff. But that's a nice feature if you already have staff that are used to using SchoolNet. Introducing Go Open NC just through the instructional resources tab might be just a real easy way without it being something else that they have to go through and click on. Just encouraging them to use it through SchoolNet might be a good option. All right, are there any other questions or hot topics before we wrap things up? I do want to be sensitive to your time. All right, I will say in closing that, I am more than happy to work with you. If there's a specific project in your district that you think Go Open and See would be wonderful for, if you're part of our DLI grants, that, sharing resources that have been created through your grant through Go Open and See, if you, just want to have a setup like Angela was saying, kind of a mentor-mentee group, I'm happy to help walk you through that to get that started and set up. Just reach out to us. And if you don't, there's no other questions. On slide 31, there is a feedback survey, and I'm going to copy that link and put it in the chat as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts about our first home-based meetup for Go Open and See and what you would like to see in the future. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions. Let me check that hot topics just to make sure. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us, and I hope you have a fantastic Friday and a great weekend. Take some time to rest and recover during this busy time.